Welcome back to the channel. Today we're working on old Pearl again, taking care of another engine code. This one is the P0462, and that is the fuel sending unit circuit low voltage, I believe, something like that. Apparently this is pretty common on these cars, and people will end up changing the instrument cluster. I did find a video where somebody had found a bad solder joint, and they took the cluster out and address that one solder joint, but what I ended up doing is using a butane soldering iron with an open tip on it and used it like a heat gun. And I went over the solder joints. Initially I had tried the single solder joint. That didn't take care of the problem, so I went ahead and tried this method, and it has taken care of the problem. I couldn't tell you which solder joint was bad, but that did take care of the problem. The light is off, has not came back on after driving the car for about a half hour. Once I did the original repair with just the soldering iron and the one solder joint, it took about 5 minutes for the light to come back on once I started driving. So I feel confident about the repair, and hopefully you can learn a little something from this video to fix yours, or if you know somebody that needs to have theirs fixed, maybe help them out and show them this video. Now I can't really tell anything right away. The C70 is what I saw being repaired, so I'm going to get my soldering iron, heat that up. I'm going to try to maybe get a microscope or a magnifying glass and see if I can look at this a little closer. If I see anything, I'll try to get it on camera, but otherwise I'm going to go ahead and take a look around and see if I see anything else. We have a small soldering iron, and this is only a 30 watt, and for what we're doing it's probably plenty, but it is good to have a pretty thin tip on it so we can get right to where we're going. Of course I'll put a link in the description for everything that I'm using here: soldering iron, solder. We don't need much, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some on the tip of this once it gets hot, and then just touch the terminal. Alright, so just a couple seconds ago you saw me do this repair right here on C70. Just reheated the solder, and based on a video that I saw, that is what I believe should have fixed the P0462. It did not. So another method I have seen on the internet is reflowing the solder by putting a circuit board in an oven at a particular temperature. I couldn't find that information again. So there's also something called a hot air station, which basically blows hot air on the solder and kind of melts it a little bit. I don't have one of those. Also, as far as putting something like this in the oven, it says not to cook in whatever device you do this in. So I decided I would take my butane torch. It's a miniature butane torch with a like a heat gun end on it. So I'm just going to turn this on, heat it up, and I'm going to go over all the solder joints. I'll show you just a little bit here, then I'll back the camera up and you can see what I'm doing. So right now I'm just firing up the soldering iron, and I'm not, you'll see when I back up the camera, I'm not really doing any local heat. I'm just trying to get the solder to remelt a little bit. So I think the oven method was around 200 degrees or so. So it doesn't need to get real hot. And I'm trying this because, you know, a lot of people say that the fix for this problem on these cars is replacing the instrument cluster. And I really don't want to if I don't have to. And if I can fix it, then I can show you how to fix it. And while I'm doing this, I really can't see what I'm doing, so you get the idea. We're just reheating the solder. I'll back the camera up and get a better view for you and for me as well. Alright, so I went over all of these plug connections on the circuit board, and hopefully if there were any loose or bad solder joints, we got them taken care of. I did get a little carried away, and I think we can see the dark spot on that one right there. Hopefully I didn't overheat it and do any damage to it, but if we did, we'll end up with a new instrument cluster. Alright, so I'm going to put this all back together, put it in the car, and we'll see if the check engine light comes on. Well, hopefully this video was helpful, and if you have any questions or comments, throw them in the comments below, and I'd be happy to answer any questions or just enjoy your feedback.